and welcome to an incredibly loud man bellowing into the darkness. This is a marvelous room. We've got some shapes being projected onto the ceiling. I feel like I'm in a dream sequence. Also today, I'm joined by Quinns Smith, the guy who started Shut It Down. It's not surprising he's here.
Hello, Matt Lees.
I said joined by as if it's like my website. Thanks for joining us, Quinns.
Thank you all very much for... I've just noticed that you've been given some kind of
Yeah, I've got some interesting stuff going on. I've got this coffee you bought me, tastes kind of like beef.
Yeah.
Giving new meaning to ground coffee. I don't know, and...
Thank you for groaning at that, everybody in the audience.
I'm not joking. It tastes like soup a little bit. It tastes like bisto, which is a British gravy thing. Also, I've got a little thing which has a laser radiation avoid direct exposure, which allows me to do a pointer around the room, which I'm not going to do any lower than this because I don't know what liability's like in terms of me blinding people.
So that's fun, isn't it? If you're listening to this at home, this is a podcast about board games, and card games, and role-playing games, and all the other games you can play in your very own house. This episode from PAX Unplugged in the city of Philadelphia. Round of applause, everybody! We have got, thank you all very much for coming. Where are my manners? We have got some board games for you today. Matthew Lees and I are going to be talking about Heaven and Ale, a game of drunk monks and bad hexagons. We're going to be talking about Reykholt, a game of unattainable carrots and the Icelandic people who love them. We're going to be talking about Captains of the Gulf, a game of bad prawns and questionable fishing practices. We're going to be talking about Trapwords, a game exploring what happens when good words go bad. And finally, we're going to be talking about Between Two Castles of Mad King Ludwig, a lovely game of, some fans of...
Some fans of King Ludwig.
Yeah, you know he's dead, right?
It's very sad.
It is sad. And he is honestly a very, very, very cool and interesting person who brought a lot of... He's a king who spread his money around his people. It was actual trickle-down economics was King Ludwig.
Yeah.
He had his money and then he said, build me 100 castles.
Yeah, and then ended up just being remembered as being mad, which feels like a tough rub.
Yeah, as opposed to
eccentric.
Between two castles of good for the economy King Ludwig.
Yeah.
Then we're going to be answering a couple of mailbag questions, including Matt and I having a showdown about whether the phrase, you know what, I'm not going to spoil it, but Matt has some strong feelings about a piece of board gaming slang.
I've got some strong feelings about that.
I do not, but I'm going to argue about it with you anyway. Shall we talk about our first game on the podcast? Shall we talk about Heaven and Ale?
Yes, we're going to do that, but I'm just going to check as well. Can everybody in the room currently see a big yellow pear and a blue background on these screens? Okay, I'm glad I checked this, because otherwise we would have been running a PowerPoint presentation for ourselves on this monitor. If somebody could make some noise when a big yellow pear and... Wonderful. Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to a marvelous invention called Microsoft PowerPoint. I have not used it for years.
I understand that in America, PowerPoint, is that how you pronounce it?
PowerPoint.
Arrived a few years ago, but in England we've just got it and we're very excited.
It is crazy.
Did you know you can put pictures in an order?
It's a sequence of pictures. It's a nightmare to use. It's one of the worst programs I've ever used. Why does anyone use this program? I've got no idea. It's hell, it's bad, it should be destroyed. Next slide.
If you're listening to this podcast, we are enhancing our live shows with revolutionary PowerPoint technology so people can see a picture of the game we're talking about.
Yeah, if you'd like to get the experience at home, just Google the name of the game that we're talking about. And the first one is Heaven and Ale. That's right, Heaven and Ale.
Yeah, we took a look at this one when it was winning some awards, and Matt's rules explanation of Heaven and Ale is one of my favorite things, so I'm going to let him explain what the game is.
Oh, so basically this is not the real rules explanation, but it's the one that I like. And it works so well. This is a game of monks trying to get absolutely wrecked. They're just trying to drink as much beer as they possibly can. But how are you going to drink loads of beer? You've got to make loads of beer. And you make loads of beer by getting all of these fields and filling them up with all the things you need to make beer. Wheat, hops, wood for barrels, and water. That's all it is. If you've got purity laws, go Germany. then basically you make things and then you make sheds, and you've got a fertility bonus in the sheds, and if you surround your sheds with monks, then monks have no fertility bonus, but then like you really rapidly advance your brewmaster token if you just make a shed that's surrounded by monks. And for me, like, this is apparently about monks making ale and selling it, but for me it's very obviously a game about monks getting like crunk, like just getting like absolutely smashed and being like, what's in that shed over there? Oh, that's the shed that we just go into and get smashed.
Yep. It's the best. More practically speaking, the way the game works is you have this central track in the middle of the board, and players in the style of Tokaido or Lignum decide how many steps they're going to move their player token along. So like maybe you see, I don't know how this works in terms of like theme, but you might see some really great water down the road. So you like leapfrog ahead of all your friends and you pay for the water, and then you get to put the water token, the water hexagon you've picked up, on your personal board, which is like a little abbey grounds. And again, the theme is bizarre because your abbey, like some kind of like hellscape, is divided into sunny side and dark side. And just like any farmer will know, if you plant crops in the dark side of your farm, it instantly turns into cash. But hops and wood and water and wheat, I don't know how you plant water as well, that is like plowed into the sunny side, you use the number on that hexagon for your beer. So it's immediately the thing that I think defines Heaven and Ale, and we should say, we quite like it. It's really pretty cool.
It's really great.
I had a lovely time playing it. I would play it again, but there's one little problem, which will explain why it didn't stick around in either of our collections. We'll get to that later. But it is a game of existing on like the most razor-thin margin I have ever played, maybe?
Yeah.
Because you get cash, and instantly you just go down to no cash again. It's like... It's incredibly sort of razory.
It's also the fact that it has a lovely mechanic that you need to get all of these 5 ingredients to make your beers. Because I say that it's about monks getting crunk, but really they don't get crunk until the very end, at which point they just go ballistic.
But that's after the game has ended. So.
Yeah, they basically get ready to make beer, and then they just make tons of the stuff, hopefully. But there's a rule which basically means that like you have to get all of your ingredients up high, and if you end up having a couple of ingredients that like you didn't get many of, then depending on how far you got around the track, you have a ratio then of how many spaces you need to move things back from the front to move things at the back forwards.
Yeah, it's atrocious. So
and it means that like you can quite easily be like, oh, if you don't get the thing, and then you score whatever is at the back, and if you don't get it to like a certain point in the board, then it doesn't matter. You might have unlocked a 5 times score multiplier, but if your score is 0, you got nothing.
Again, man, these monks are living close to the edge. Yeah, it's like you can have the best wheat, the best water, but if you don't have any wood, if these monks don't have wood, let me tell you, it's a disaster. Because why is everyone laughing? I don't...
It wasn't a joke. It's
serious. If you don't have wood, then like if the wood, stop laughing. Like what? Someone's cheering there.
They get no points. That's a really
it's
horrendous.
Worse, like,
it's the worst thing that can happen.
So you've played expertly the whole game. Your wood is on like the one space of the track, despite all your best efforts. And then you can advance it up the track by taking your highest resource and dropping it down by 5.
Yeah.
Like. Ow!
And it's the weird thing as well of like, it's like rockets taking off, and the fact that everyone spends their whole game, and it's like, how many turns are left? And you're like, 2 turns, and you look at your thing, you're like, we're not going to brew any beer. Like, we're going to brew like maybe a small can, enough for. But they'll like pass it around like they're teenagers, like being naughty. Don't do that. That's illegal. I noticed that on the policy for this show, a lot of the things you're not allowed to do are things that are illegal. So I'm guessing that crimes, just generally, keep it out of the room if you can. Just no crimes today in here. But yeah, it basically means that you can effectively just end up with nothing, but it tends to be that in the last turn you suddenly just go whoomp, and you've got hops coming out your wazoo, and everything's going fine, but it's weird, like, it feels like right until the very end nothing happens, then it explodes.
Yeah, and so much of that is because on your sort of hexagon farm board you have these spaces where sheds could be, but you can only build a shed if you've fully surrounded it, which means for so much of the game you're not surrounding sheds until at the end, hopefully. It's an incredibly tense ending because did you surround your sheds? Yes, you did. Pow, pow, pow. And then when you place a shed, you get to score everything around it again. Like, let me tell you, I don't know if you guys have played board games, but it's really exciting.
It's great. Yeah, you can easily end up with a situation where you come home and you discover you now have 5 sheds, like your husband's taken too much prescription medication and gone to the DIY shop, and you're like, this is a problem. Yeah, it's really, really quite lovely.
Yeah, should we move on to the problem with it?
Yeah.
It's real ugly.
It's really, really ugly.
Well, Shut Up and Sit Down has been, sort of accused of, in the past of, like, we say we like a game, we like a game, we like a game, we like a game, and then we say, but it's not good looking. Like, that's a terrible problem, and it's not. It's just that you have to remember that, I mean, it's not just that Heaven and Ale is like, Heaven and Ale is competing with all the other games that are as good at it and are aesthetically pleasing.
Yes.
Right? It's not that we have limited space in our shelves, and Heaven and Ale is really strong, but often Shut Up and Sit Down has been recommending Euro games that are really strong and have a great theme and feel nice to touch.
You know, we live in a new era of Euro games now. Like, we're getting lots of like really attractive Euro games, and I think that a big part of Euro games is enjoying moving things around in your own little space and the aesthetics of that and how it feels to do that. It's a big thing.
Yep.
And so it's one of these things where we look at it and it's like, it's great, but you just think, oh, if it looked. And it always seems to be the way, though, that like you play these games that are really quite tremendously ugly, and they're really good.
They're the best ones, yeah.
And you're like, the ones that you think, this is gorgeous, you're like, this isn't actually like quite good enough. It's
But what sucks is that Heaven and Ale was an Egget Spiel release, and then Plan B bought Egget Spiel, and since then we've had games like Coimbra and Blackout Hong Kong from Egget Spiel, which Plan B is ensuring now have like a really nice lick of paint. So Heaven and Ale was just like the last chopper out of, last chopper out of Saigon. That analogy is offensive and doesn't work. Yeah, it's like if Plan B had bought Egget Spiel a bit earlier, we could have a version of Heaven and Ale that's beautiful and great, so that's a real shame. But we have games we like maybe even more than Heaven and Ale coming up, so shall we move on to the next slide?
pressing a button. It's Reykholt.
What did you say the software was called?
This is called PowerPoint.
PowerPoint.
For anyone
Great.
at home, look it up. It's awful.
And it costs how much? £400.
I think it's quite expensive. You know, my office these days is about 70 quid, I think.
Okay, Matt, I'm going to tell you about Reykholt now. This game, look at it. It's a game of greenhouses, and I was so excited to play it. This is from Uwe Rosenberg, designer of such classics as Agricola, Feast for Odin. Oh my God, I'm drawing a blank. That's nuts. Patchwork. Yeah, how about that? That's a game. Bonanza, yeah, of course, great, useful. Newsfield, that's what I wrote down on my notes, and I couldn't find my notes.
The little fish, I want to eat them.
Yes, so Reykholt is a game where, Matt, I'm going to get you really excited now, right? So you are an Icelandic person, and in Iceland you have loads of geothermal energy. Which means you can grow whatever vegetables you want, but you need to have the geothermal greenhouses first. So, what if I were to tell you you had 3 workers in a game of Reykholt, and you could send them to do anything you wanted?
Anything?
What if you wanted, like, a tomato?
What if I want cauliflower?
Ooh, cauliflower might be a bit out of your league to begin with, honestly. That's not a joke. Carrots in...
Being told that cauliflower is out of my league is one of the most offensive things anyone's ever said to me.
Reykholt has the most fabulous arbitrary ranking of vegetables, whereby, like, tomatoes, tomatoes dime a dozen, not interested. Lettuces? No, you're talking. Cauliflower? Whoa. No, I think it's mushrooms. Then cauliflower, and I believe it's called a carrot.
The carrot is the hardest thing?
Yes, the carrot is the hardest thing to grow.
I kind of agree, but I kind of agreed with some of that scale, actually.
Yeah, like lettuce and cauliflower.
I think cauliflower is superior to tomatoes and lettuce, which
in
is...
your extensive experience.
But I think lettuce is the worst. Lettuce have no time
Let's definitely not.
Welcome to the Salad Podcast.
Nope. Anyway, so let's imagine, so you sent your worker, you've got your tomato, right? That's exciting. It's a wooden tomato that comes in a little cardboard box. It's lovely. Then let's say you send another worker, and now you've got a greenhouse. Then what if you sent your 3rd and final worker of the turn? Matt, are you ready? What if you sent him to plant your tomato? Ooh. So now what happens is greenhouses come in like all shapes and sizes. You can get the big greenhouse, which has like 6 slots for things. Now what you do if you plant, you take your tomato, your little wooden tomato, you put it into that greenhouse with 6 slots.
Keep talking.
And then you put another tomato in every single other slot in the greenhouse. So you now have 6 tomatoes, but they're in your greenhouse, they're growing. And then every turn you get to pluck 1 tomato off of the greenhouse, right?
That's interest.
And that's, it's basically, it's tomato interest, and I believe it's called farming. I'm not sure. But no, honestly, this is just such a fabulous pitch. And the thing that powers Reykholt really is that to progress up the scoring track, you need to cash in vegetables. So initially, the first thing is like you have to pay a tomato, then a lettuce, then a mushroom, then so on. But then eventually, once you've paid all 5 kinds of vegetables, then you have to pay 2 tomatoes to advance, then 2 lettuces. So this is how you actually win the game. But what's super exciting is there's so many, it's kind of that Feast for Odin thing where the board has tons of worker placement spaces, and they're all a little bit different. So it might be like plant, then harvest twice, or get a tomato and a lettuce, or get a greenhouse that's big, or get like a greenhouse and a tomato, but the greenhouse is a random greenhouse, don't know what you're going to get.
Or hunt for wild tomatoes.
Yes, with a spear and a bow and arrow.
It's not an ideal use of a turn, but if you're really stuck.
It's interesting in that it gives you a great deal of control over your engine, whereby you might, a player might say, just have a ton of greenhouses and just fill them with tons of vegetables. Another player might acquire the cards that are like special things, like a geothermal heat pump or a bag of mixed seeds. I posted about that on our Instagram because I was so excited to get my bag of mixed seeds, which lets you fill a greenhouse with every kind of vegetable. Imagine!
This is like a potentially a real vortex for us because it overlaps the two things that we will both talk about for infinity: food and plants. Like, we've got to be careful.
Yes. So, long story short, I was so excited to play Reykholt. It looks gorgeous. It gives you a lot of flexibility. It's got a really nice thing at the end where you can also sell your greenhouses to panically get the final vegetables. So there's a thing where, like, in the final turns of the game, you can just sell your entire greenhouse to advance up the scoring track. But again, worker placement, so which player does that? What turn do you do it? Do you sell your greenhouse, like, halfway through the game? That sounds mad, but then you definitely get the space. It's like, it's a very curious puzzle, and it's very interesting, and it's beautiful. There were just a couple of things that held it back from me fully being able to recommend it, and a lot of that really was, and this is my main criticism of it, you know our classic question of where does the game reside?
Yes.
So in Reykholt, you've got your greenhouses, you've got vegetables, you've got the worker placement, that's all awesome, but so much of the game is spent staring at, around the edge of the board, these little tables that tell you what you need. And so much of the puzzle is like, okay, to advance this turn, I need to cash in 4 tomatoes, then 4 lettuce, then 4 mushrooms, then something, and you're just staring at that scoring track, trying to work out if you can get the right combination of vegetables. And collecting veggie combos is not what's fun about the game. What's fun about the game is planting, harvesting, building an empire, developing, not then taking those tomatoes you harvested and just throwing them into the mouths of some tourists who aren't even going to appreciate them. So yeah, that and the fact that as a worker placement game, there were so many spaces that, like Feast for Odin, you weren't really clashing. But in a game as simple as this, I needed a bit of that clashing, needed a bit of that excitement. So yeah, not necessarily one I'd recommend, but still one I had a good time with. You looked like you were going to say something.
I was just trying to work out if there was anything in Clash of the Titans, but then working out a way of like merging the word tomatoes and Titans, and I decided there wasn't.
Yeah, I agree. Should we move on to maybe the most exciting Euro game we played recently? Let's move on to Captains of the Gulf. Crime Busters of the Sea. Did you have Sharky and George in America?
Sharky and George was a French TV show which was dubbed for us.
Okay.
It was really quite a low-budget TV show for kids about I think it was a little fish, a clownfish and a shark, I think. He was called Sharky. George was like a clownfish, I think. Maybe it wasn't. Anyway, they were like detectives in the sea, and I had a great theme tune.
You might think that there's not much need for detectives under the sea, but if I learned anything from Sharky and George, it's constant crime.
Rife with crime.
Fish are up to no good, and Captains of the Gulf, if you believe that fish need to be punished, is a game about punishing fish. Matt, do you want to walk people through Captains of the Gulf?
Captains of the Gulf is a game with a tiny prawn on the box, and you have to look at the back of the box to realize it's about Mexico. And you only really find that out.
The Gulf of Mexico.
Yeah, it's the Gulf of Mexico, because for those of you who are able to see it, the board is gigantic. It's absolutely huge. You can look at pictures of it, but then you see it in real life and you go, that is at least twice as big as I expected. If you're watching this on the large screens in this auditorium, that is actual size.
Should we talk about the production first and get it out of the way so we can actually,
the production is very poor. It's incredibly weak, and also not only is it like just very, very low quality art, it doesn't evoke the idea of the Gulf of Mexico in any way, shape or form. It looks more like Bristol.
It looks like a small sort of puddle that the camera has zoomed in on.
Yes.
To an incredible extent. That we really need to be careful when we criticize this, because Captains of the Gulf, as a piece of game design, worked by the designer, we both really liked it. And there's a ton of interesting stuff happening here. As a work from Spielworks, the actual sort of producers of the game, I was frustrated by the manual. We were frustrated by the art. The one thing they did do, but this is not necessarily a positive, is that all the quality of the components is extremely high. The cards are fantastic quality. The card stock of the board is beautiful.
Yes.
You get massive reference sheets, but this sums it all up. You get a huge huge piece of card that is for each player that is your reference sheet.
So A4.
It's A4 and does not have the information you want on it.
It's single-sided as well. Could have been double-sided A5.
It's nuts. And the manual, and this never happens, but like, it's been so long since I've read a manual that teaches you stuff in the wrong order.
Yes.
Where it like explains a system to you and you're like, I don't know what you're talking about. Like your drunk friend, like trying to express something and you're like,
and even
you didn't tell the beginning of this story. Like,
and it's not just poor art, it's poor UI as well, bad graphic design. Like there's a system in it whereby like there are certain actions you can do using cubes because, you know, it's a board game. And but these actions, they have like little bits of rope around them in a square, and you're like, oh cool, like anything with this rope around the edge in a square is as a special action that can be activated with this. But then you've got like other stuff on the board that has the rope around it that isn't an action. You're just like, why would you do that?
Also, the main board, like they were so in love with this idea of using a ship's wheel for the rondel action selector, and then little life, sort of life rings for like based on player count. And it's like they're not entirely expressive of what they're supposed to be. It's like the artist had this idea and was definitely going to do it. Never mind like the fact that the first draft didn't look great, but I wanted to get that out of the way because
I like the wheel. I thought you were going to say like we've got to be careful about what we say about the art in this game because it's designed by a fish. I was like, where's
and
it going
that
with
fish
this?
did very well. No, I just wanted to put all that to one side because I know the designer is a fan of Shut Up, Sit Down, and I want to say that as a design, I thought Captains of the Gulf was fascinating and awesome.
Yeah, I really liked it. Like, it was really frustrating to learn. It was very frustrating having to, like, we were proper head in the manual for the first 45 minutes because the reference card is just, like, bin fodder.
Yeah.
Like, all the stuff you need to know is just not on it. But the way it actually plays is fascinating. Like, effectively, you have these different ports, and each port wants one of the three types of fish, which are clams, prawns, and crabs.
Which are, I think, the three kinds of fish in the sea.
The three kinds of fish available in the sea. Yeah. Everything else is kind of like a variant, like a shiny Pokemon. And each of those docks, they basically will give you slightly more money for going there and selling them. And
we should also stress, you run a fishing boat in this game.
You're a fisherman. You've got a boat, or a fisher lady. I don't know what's going on. But effectively, you've got pools of the three types of fish in the sea. You go and you do some fishing, and then you take them to the best port. But oh no, you've got no fuel, which means getting around the sea is a nightmare. Sometimes, quite frequently in fact, you have to be towed back to port because you've run out of fuel.
Incredible.
Like waving and going, hello, I'm sorry, I've done it again.
A full half of the game for me was spent being towed, which I feel like couldn't have been profitable, but was.
I fondly remember the point where he was like, well, you can't do that, Matt. I'm like, why not? I'm paying to be towed. It's like, yeah, you can only be paid to be towed back to a port. You can't pay someone to tow you out to sea to do more fishing. And I was like, oh yeah, but I love the idea of being like, help! Look, we can just go over there, there's some crabs.
On the board, when you're playing, you put a load of tokens representing prawns, which I don't know if the word prawn is used that much in America. You guys call them shrimp, obviously.
Shrimp.
But we're going to call them prawns because that's a much funnier word. So you seed the board initially with prawns and clams and crabs, and that's exciting because then you have to sail out, you spend oil fishing, that's all exciting, but it has this fabulous mechanic where if you take a fish, you replate it and put it in your boat, and your boat, by the way, has room for 2 prawns when you start the game. But don't worry, because you can upgrade it to hold 4 prawns. Anyway, so if you take a prawn or a clam or whatever, you then replace it on the board with a minus. And at the end of a turn, you remove or if there's 1 minus in a space, you flip it to a plus. And the turn after that, the plus turns into more fish. So what that means is that if you fish like a little bit and sustainably, you actually, repopulate the Gulf with like more fish, and that's great. However, let's imagine hypothetically that there's like some really valuable crabs outside of a port, and you take them all. Well, then you have multiple minuses, which means the crabs will take like 4 or 5 turns to repopulate. So in those 4 or 5 turns, maybe you get more fish. And this is fine, because there's loads more fish. It's literally loads more fish in the sea. What they don't tell you about that catchphrase is sometimes the fish do actually run out of the sea. And so suddenly you've got this Euro game where you can fully depopulate the board based on how you play, based on sort of like weird cards that can come up, which means, and I love this, because how you actually win Captains of the Gulf is money in pocket. So while there is so much of the game is upgrading your ship with more boxes, with crew, with gear, like buying it, you can have an engineer, and then later, if you want, you can buy them a toolbox, which implies like they're in your engine room with bare hands.
I can do it with my hands. Don't you worry, boss.
Fixing pipes. There's so many upgrades you can get. You can get like sonars and all kinds of nonsense. But But that money that goes into your boat isn't counted at the end of the game, and this is my favorite thing.
Very cool.
So when you buy an upgrade, you're like, will this get me more money? And if the sea starts running out of fish, then you just don't.
I definitely
upgrade
right
your
at the end had a turn where I just sort of like rocked out of the thing, came back with my boat, which had a new engine and like a massive fuel tank, and I'm like, ready to get some fish, and it's like, there are no fish. And it was like, oh no, when are the fish coming back? The next turn is the last round, there might be some fish over there, but maybe not.
Yep.
And it's like,
Yep, it's lovely.
So, knowing when to like boost it up and when to like, and it's really interesting, and it's kind of a shame that the one thing that we thought would be awesome about this game that we kind of felt wasn't there was this idea of having like some sort of localization, of having it being like, this is my kind of area of the sea, and you can still go into other people's, but you all just end up moving around the sea randomly and going back to different ports, and that's cool that you're sharing all the space, but it would have been really interesting to have more of a sense of like, well, I'm just going to carefully farm the fish around here, but then if someone spends a bunch of money on a big boat with a big engine and just zooms over to where you are and eats them all up, then that's a problem.
Yeah, the idea that everyone might have a home port would be cool, or like, I don't know, some kind of private seaboard, so it's like you've got the interesting question of, do I fish my own waters sustainably, which will pay off way more later, or do I take all the crabs out now? And then also the sad thing of like, because of the way the pluses and minus tokens for repopulation work, there was a really sad thing where a space was about to repopulate and it had like one crab left. Or like, I imagined it as like 2 crabs that were going to breed and going to have crab kids. But then just before it repopulated, you were like, okay, I'm just going to actually have that. And then you sort of hoisted the crab away from its lover, and even though it was about to repopulate, and my strategy was counting on that, and because one crab wasn't that valuable to you anyway, you just kind of did it on a whim, and then it's like, okay, now there's no more crab babies coming. Which was actually it was thematic, it was mechanically interesting. It's not necessarily explored as much as I would have liked.
No, it's a really cool idea that like just could have been explored a little bit more, and it would have been great. It's kind of like, it's the idea of like the fish, the way they repopulate, and the way that kind of has a weird tidal thing of where they repopulate. It's all very cool, but it did end up, because it's a board game, that I went and just stole a crab because I knew that it would stop repopulating the sea, and it's kind of like, that didn't feel very fisherman-y.
No.
Like being like, I will take this tiny crab and sell it for £3, and now there are no more fish. It's like, what? Am I a fisherman? Am I a bad fisherman?
Yep.
I don't know.
Yes, you literally, you were in that game. Because I won.
I think there was a point where I was unironically was like, well, I guess I'll go back to Morgan City with my bad prawns.
Yeah, it's lovely because it's so many Euro games are just about building up and up and up and up, and this had real peaks and troughs. Really nice flow, very interesting. So yeah, while we were maybe not as hot on Captains of the Gulf and Heaven and Ale as we could have been,
they're both worth the play.
They're both absolutely worth the play, and hey, you know what? Good board games tend to get new editions, and I would definitely be interested in maybe even recommending a new edition of Captains of the Gulf or Heaven and Ale. But moving on, we have a game that I'm really excited to talk about. We played Trapwords by Czech Games Edition. We've only played this once, so this is really your first impressions. But Trapwords is a word-based party game for 4 to 8 players, so it's Czech Games very much going after that same Codenames market. And if you've played Codenames and maybe also really enjoyed Decrypto, which we love and was just in Matt's Christmas Games feature that went up today.
Oh, did it? Is it Friday?
Yes. What day did you think it was?
I don't know, man. I've been drinking a lot of this beef coffee.
So Trapwords is, I would like to own Codenames and Decrypto and Trapwords. I think I really like Trapwords. So the way it works is you have 2 teams of players who, on each round, each team is given a word that the other team is going to guess. So it's like celebrity. So for example, let's say I'm on another team from Matt. I take a thing and I know that Matt is going to be trying to get his team to guess the word goblin. And excellently, you can, based on how you set up the game, you can either use all fantasy words, which fit the sort of faux fantasy theme of the game, so you can have your friends guess like goblin, thief, and all that stuff. Or if you're playing with, people who think that stuff is for nerds, you can just make one tiny tweak, and suddenly all the words become like...
normal words.
Mortgage.
Yeah. Broker.
2 things we will never interact
Independent advisor.
with. Yeah. So let's say I know that Matt is going to try and get the word mortgage, for example. I then know that, and let's say he's on level 4 of the game. I then, before Matt is going to get his team to try and guess the word mortgage in the style of celebrity, which is like, okay, it's a loan you get to pay for a house, which is...
Well, you can do that? That's crazy.
Work with me here.
That doesn't sound sustainable in the long term.
Matt, and also the banks usually go, young couples usually get them. And
surely there's going to be some sort of problem with this.
You know what, screw you. If Matt was playing ball, he would say the word mortgage there, and I would go, hooray, that's correct.
Yeah, I would have done. But it's being a knob.
Can't swear.
That's a rude word in England. It's not that rude.
Okay, so, but if I knew Matt was going to try and get his team to guess the word mortgage, then I would write down, and he's on level 4 trap words. So I would write down like house, bank, loan, whatever. Then, can we do a version of this? So Matt, go! And then you flip the sand timer
You
because
want
he's on.
a place to live permanently, can't afford.
What, like a dreams? So then the thing is that Matt does not know what the trap words are. That is the key thing. But if he says one, then I get to go,
Like, oh, I'll keep going. A house.
a house, and then I would go,
You don't have to do that, but that's what we enjoy doing because we're assholes. We're just going at people and then laughing. It's really fun. Also, like, I was really good at this.
Yes, it was lovely. There was a couple of examples and rounds I wanted to share. Did you have a story you wanted to share?
Well, I think our favorite was the fact that we had a round and we were ahead, we were already winning, and I think the way we had to do the clue was crowbar. And we'd all gone for sensible things like break, force, but we had like a word left over because we had like 5, and I was like, let's just put in half. Like, just because I reckon we knew the guy who was doing it, and I was like, let's put that one in. Literally, the first thing he said was Half-Life. And we were just like,
If you're not aware, Half-Life is a video game where the protagonist has a crowbar. Yeah. So he thought he was being clever.
It's basically, it's not really a word game. And I think that's why I wasn't expecting to like it as much as I did, because we've been playing a lot of word games recently. And I think sometimes, especially we played Spell Smashers recently, which is like, hey, it's just a word game, but with a fancy rapper. And I just find it quite boring, but I'm not that into fancy rappers. So when I was like, it's another fancy rapper, I keep thinking of loud, like, fancy rap music, but this, I'm sure it exists, I don't want to know about it. But basically I thought, okay, but it's psyops, the game. You're looking at this person and you're not just being like, oh, what words are associated with this? You're like, how would this person try and convey to these people this word whilst avoiding, because it's like, it's wheels within wheels, because obviously if mortgage, you want to say house. But then, like, maybe they're not going to even say that anyway, because they think that's going to be...
You can go several Yomi layers deep, which is why I instantly found myself, like, fascinated by it. Because, obviously, if you had to get goblin, the obvious trap words would be, like, you know, orc or monster.
Green.
But then you know the other team is green, great, yeah. But you know the other team is going to assume that those words are on the thing and try and avoid them anyway. So instantly, they're like, well, let's go deeper. Yeah. Like, Inception. Like, what would I say? I might say, like, imp, dungeon, or, like, imp is, like, or, yeah. And so you can try and catch people out, but then, like, also the way it works with your head was tricky. I had to make my team guess wolf, and I was speaking very slowly and very considered, and you're under real pressure because there is a little sound timer.
You really screwed it up.
Yeah, it was fabulous. I enjoyed screwing it up though, and that's a sign that I really like the game. But I said, the first thing I said, speaking slowly and carefully and pressured, I went, okay, so the word I guess was wolf, right? So I start saying, okay, in the Arctic, because in my head, wolves could exist in the Arctic.
And then I'm like, penguin.
But what I found interesting there is, because I was speaking so slowly and I was so nervous, I didn't feel permission to then say like, oh, no, scratch what I just said, which would have been the sensible thing to do. But that sounded like so many words, and I was trying to avoid words that I didn't feel permission to correct myself. So I just kind of kept digging myself deeper into a hole.
Yeah, and it's a double-sided thing as well. If you're not in trouble just if the person giving the clue said the words. If the person guessing says one of the words. So if you give them a clue, but it's not quite right enough.
I thought that was true, but it's not. There is a.
Oh, ignore that.
There are all kinds of special curse cards in the game, which give the team that is ahead a special penalty. Like, I think there's one called Petrification, which is, and everyone knows this, but as soon as your team guesses one word, the clue giver freezes. And just has to, like, that curse card could have been, when your team guesses one word, you have to stop speaking. But it's Czech Games Edition. They often put out some really fun stuff, and sure enough, it's like, no, you don't just stop speaking, you have to freeze in place. Like you've been petrified. It's very cute. And then at the end of the game, the finale is always a boss monster, and the boss monster is just a special condition you have.
Yeah, it's wonderful, especially though when you find yourself very carefully speaking slowly, trying to think carefully about what words you use whilst just having people staring at you. It's
But also, the whole other team is staring at you because they're so desperate for you to say one of the words they've written down.
the only thing I really didn't like really was the art and the theme. If I'm honest, like it kind of has a kind of chibi anime sort of look to it, like Adventure Heroes, and I don't. That's just purely personal preference. It's not for me.
I actually quite liked it. I totally see why
Yeah.
it's not for you, but I really liked the. Yes, it was chibi fantasy, but it was all done quite well.
Oh yeah. It's not bad art. I just don't like it.
Absolutely. So, should we move on to our final game before we move on to the mailbag?
Yep. Pressing a button. It's between two castles of the financially good King Ludwig. Financially good.
Are you playing Trapwords in your head again? Between two castles of Mad King Ludwig, if you'd like, which is Ludwig, but pronounced Vig, I think, is a weird thing. It's a hybrid of two games. It's also two different game companies working together. So already I thought this was fabulous. Oh no, why did I drink so much Pepsi?
Why did you drink so much Pepsi?
I got excited. Okay, thanks everybody. I thought you were just taking it away from me. So this is a combination of a game called Between Two Cities, which I played and really quite liked, but not that much. We talked about it on our podcast a while back, where it's got the most fabulous setup for any game ever, where you sit in a circle, requires at least 3 people, and everyone is building a city like in the manner of, I don't know if you've heard of board games, but you have to build a city on they're interesting. But every player is responsible for 2 cities, each of which is placed between them and the player sat to their left and right. And each turn you add a tile to the city on your left and right, but which tile and where. And it's kind of like Suburbia or other city building games where, like for example, in Between Two Cities, if you had like a load of factories, that was great, but if you had a factory next to a house, that was bad, all that stuff. But your score was the worst of the 2 towns you've got, which is a fabulous mechanic. And also because there's a weird social thing I really enjoyed of like looking at your partner and being like, where do you think this should go? And then your other side is like essentially paging you and you're like, oh sorry, 1 second, and you turn. But you don't know what's happening beyond the person to your right, It's a completely fascinating thing, and I absolutely recommend people play Between Two Cities or this. So that's Between Two Cities. Between Two Castles of Mad King Ludwig, is that combined with the Castles of Mad King Ludwig? Is that the name of the game? The words have lost all meaning. Sure. Yeah, great. So now, again, you're placing squares, but in this game, there are a preposterous number of tiles and art assets.
Don't put the mushroom cellar next to the bedroom.
Yeah, it's literally that. But every single tile in the game is unique. All of them have beautiful art, and we played a 4-player game of it and saw barely a third of what was in the game. It's unbelievably generous, and that's great because so much of the game is making the most of the reality of the castles of Mad King Ludwig, of I'll have my opera cave next to the spy room. I mean, it exaggerates the actual history of the thing, but yeah, I had, and the castles kind of tell stories. I had one castle which had a kittenery, where you have kittens, and then a pigsty, where you got pigs. We got a stables, and it was this lovely animal castle.
There's a lot of animals.
Yeah, and then I happened to change the tenor of that castle a bit by adding a taxidermy room.
Sometimes it's hard to say goodbye.
My friends made a castle which...
To pigs, especially, yeah.
My friends made a castle which they had a room which got points for every room that was below it. So their castle was basically one long massive tower with a bungalow on ground floor, and then a little tower on top of it. But as much as I love the idea, and as much as the art's amazing, and as a concept, it's just beautiful. But I didn't get along with it as much as I wanted to, for the same reason I didn't get along with Between Two Cities. And actually, I think it's a game. I think I might like Between Two Cities more, because this exacerbates my main problem with it, which is to play well, and I want to play it well. You have to recalculate the value of each castle, and there's no tracker. So every single room has a scoring multiplier, and if you look at a picture of the game, you can see, you immediately see the problem, right?
Yeah.
So there's a bathroom, and the bathroom might be okay, get 1 point for every bedroom adjacent to it and the 8 spaces around it, or a garden that gets a point that's for every, other garden that it's connected to. But then when you have a castle with 20 tiles, the score, actually scoring your castle at the end is a process of 3 or 4 minutes.
Yeah.
And so
But you have to do it as you go.
if you wanted to play well, you should kind of do it as you go, but that's so insane and bad and awful that you would never do that. So instead you kind of go with your gut. So you sort of just build castles with your gut, and then you find out that that one to the left of yours is an abomination and terrible. And you've lost. But that's fine, but it's kind of an unsatisfying ending. Also, because they've got so many tiles in the game, the tiles are all really small. So squinting at the text on the tiles wasn't a great experience for me, and it's just a bugbear of mine that I hate squinting at board games. Like, if I want to play board games in good light, and I don't want the text to be too small. But yeah, I really wanted to like it, but ultimately just... And again, you should absolutely give it a go, because there were some whoops in the audience when I mentioned we were reviewing this, like, or mentioned that we were talking about it, because it's a fascinating thing. But yeah, and I would definitely try this, or Between Two Cities, or even just Castles of Mad King Ludwig, because while they're not for us, they're all lovely, lovely ideas. Should we move on to our mailbag?
Yep.
Should we wrap this fella up?
Yeah.
This is where the mailbag theme will go in the podcast.
Yeah. We'll put your hands in my mailbag. Buy me a letter.
Wow, I was expecting applause and there was nothing.
I think they should have left me hanging. That would have been. I don't care.
That would have been great. It would have been great if I briefed them that you were going to sing
this all day. I don't care. I'll sing songs whether you want me to or not.
We have an actual mailbag question, but before that, I just wanted to put something to rest because Matt and I were going to we started having an argument about this. Then immediately we're like, no, let's have this argument on the podcast. So I've sort of become aware within sort of like board game hobbyist circles. People in the audience might not know this, that a piece of slang has developed. And it's a very nice piece of slang. It's not that that I might teach you a board game. If I'm talking to Matt, I'm talking about my experience of like, my friend Millicent taught me a board game. I might say like, oh, and she did a good job of it. I might say, oh, the teach was good. The teach used as a noun. Hands up if you've heard that phrase or seen it on Board Game Circuit. About 5 people in the audience.
Yeah, you were like, oh, there's this thing, like, cool thing I heard. It's like, you'd be like, oh, how's the teach? And you'd be like, yeah, it's not bad. And you were like, told me about it. So you're like, it's pretty cool. I was like,
well, I mean, okay, hang on. Don't throw me under the bus that fast. I don't think it's pretty cool. I think it might be kind of cool.
You liked it. You were like, this is cool.
I don't know, yeah.
You're like, how's the teach? Yeah, it's pretty good. I think it's really lame. I'm just gonna pin my donkey to my colours there. That's not a line. I think it's really like dad's talking about cars. When somebody says, how's the teach? Oh, the teach on that game's pretty good. I imagine somebody in their 50s putting their hands on their hips and going, yeah, pretty rough teach on that one, actually. Yeah, it's
okay.
A real number.
You're not wrong. But what it does do is it puts more of a focus on the idea that teaching a game can be good or bad.
That's true.
Like, I would be uncomfortable saying like they were bad at teaching it or they were good at teaching it, but that word existing, because language is complicated and weird, the fact that that word exists makes me think about people teaching board games like as a craft. It enables me to separate the act of someone teaching the board game from the game itself, and then consider the teach versus the game.
I mean, you could just say teaching it is the thing.
But you don't. We don't really...
You say teaching it is hard versus the teach is hard. It's the same, it's basically like one less syllable.
Yeah, okay, You're right on a mathematical level, but you know what I mean? Like, we don't say that formal sentence. But
no, well, sometimes you do though. Sometimes you say it's really hard to teach. It's hard to teach.
But if you were talking of Matt...
Versus the teach. Pretty rough teach on that one. I had a real rough time.
But the 2 sentences you just used.
Don't even talk to me about the teach on this. Oof. I'll be here all night. It just, I don't know, it's like, it just seems like the opposite of what we stand for. It's like creating like pointless terminology and slang, like, to make things slightly more obscure, and like, I think whenever you invent something like that needs to be explained, what do you like?
But it doesn't need to be explained. As soon as I heard someone use it, I go...
Because if someone says, the teach on this is rough, you're like...
No, it's not that. The teach refers to someone's act of teaching the game.
Yeah.
It's sections off that part of the board game evening, and it's like, what was it like playing, I don't know, like Captains of the Gulf, and you'd be like, oh, the game was good. Teach was a little rough because... Okay, you know what? Hearing myself say it, I get your point, and we should move on.
I'm glad we did this. It's important we have these conversations on a stage in front of hundreds of people.
Yeah, we're not going to be doing this again. Our actual mailbag question comes from John Price. Thank you very much for writing in, John. And John writes, for each of you, if you could create any Shut Up and Sit Down spin-off company or product, what would it be? Some examples to get you going: a Shut Up and Sit Down board game cafe, or a line of board game scented candles with pairings such as Power Grid, Ozone and Oligarchs, Ex Libris, Aristotle and Austerity, Pandemic, Dysentery and Despair. Obviously, all candles include the signature undertone of lifelong existential dread. All the best for the future, fellas. John Price. Thanks, John. I had an idea for what my spin-off project would be.
What, a spin-off like project
So,
product?
yeah, well, not like a spin-off Shut Up and Sit Down business. What if there was a hotline designers could call just to double-check the theme of their board game wasn't boring before going to print? So, like, they call up, they're like, oh, man, I want to do, like, a sci-fi world. It's got, like, planets.
Yeah.
Some of them are, like, lava planets. And I'd be like, I'm just going to stop you there. And then, but, you know, the line would be, like, £1 a minute, so it works out okay.
That's like £5, 5 minutes.
Yeah.
That's crazy!
But within 5 minutes, I bet I could improve your board game theme. Like, sometimes it's so simple, and this is what I was thinking about, right? The way that we like Flamme Rouge's theme, despite the fact that bicycle racing is kind of boring, because it's not bicycle racing, it's 1920s bicycle racing. So it's handlebar moustaches and silliness, and it's less competitive and less aggressive and...
Less drugs, probably. Well, alcohol is a drug,
We
so
looked
that's
this
not
up,
true.
yeah. Those guys were pissed.
Yeah, drunk as anything.
Yeah, I don't know. I think it's not, like, we look at Twilight Imperium a lot. Like, the fact that Twilight Imperium just has animals. Like, really, that gives so much to it.
Yeah,
You know, and
I'm a turtle, I'm a lion.
Or like Food Chain Magnate. It's not just about food chains, it's food chains in the 50s.
Yes.
You know,
Yes.
like all of this.
Yeah, it's like, it's a kind of an improv-y thing, isn't it? Like, yes, and, like, well, come on, what is it? Like, don't just be like, orcs. It's like,
Yeah.
And they're on bicycles.
I'd play a game
pretty
about
easy.
orc bicycle. Yeah. So that's my idea. Did you have an idea for a Shut Up and Sit Down spin-off business?
Well, there's been a couple of things I've been thinking about a little bit. Actually,
You sound like you're gonna like fire me or.
if I could just have some music, actually, that would be.
What is happening?
I've lost my PowerPoint. Oh no.
What did you say the software was called again? PowerPoint.
Right, this is Microsoft PowerPoint. I've got a problem. Do 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 do.
Hey, this is great. You know
We
what?
got time for a minute for me to go backstage?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, we got this room for like 40 minutes. How's everybody doing? This is not going to be on the recording, so that's nice. If anyone wants to swear now. That's, that's good. This is great. I can go off topic a bit. Matt and I have been playing some Keyforge the last couple of days. Yeah, it's cool. I'll tease that like it's going to be our next big review. It's going to be our blowout year-end review, so you guys can expect like a really cool review. It's going to be extra cool because Matt and I disagree on it really strongly. That's going to be awesome. We're really going to make fun of each other, and I'm going to show why I'm right. Show of hands, right? So I really get stuck on this. So Keyforge's thing, I don't know if you guys are aware of the universe, but it's like the idea. Sorry. It's just, I'm just cracking up because I've been talking for 5 minutes. Matt and I joked on the way here that like, if one, say again? Bad teach. Maybe this has to stay in the podcast. This is. Yeah. So I don't. Oh, we've got a screen up. That's good. So I don't know how people feel about this, but the world of Keyforge is the idea that like 6 different worlds have crashed together, which basically means there's 6 different art styles. So you have like Martians from like a 1940s action comic, with the big green heads, and you've got like sci-fi robots that look like they fell out of Destiny by Bungie, the video game. Then you've got like orcs that sort of came from Magic the Gathering, but there's like rockets and guns, and then you've got like some monkeys that live in a forest. And it really bums me out that you've got these 6 worlds crashed together. So show of hands if you like that. Like a few people. Show of hands if you think it's kind of a cop-out and they should have just made a world that they really could put there. Few more people. Yeah, no, a lot of people. Yeah, good, right. How you doing?
How's it going?
How's it going, man?
So I thought while I was back there, I'd just go for a wee. So.
Yeah. I can't tell if you're not joking. Actually.
I'm not joking, no. I was like, it's been a while. They're not going to miss me for like 9, 10 seconds. It's really funny earlier today, because I've been feeling a bit under the weather, like cold and stuff. And Quinns was like, if you had to do a podcast on your own, would you do it? And yet you were like, I don't know. And I was like, oh yeah, Quinns is like, I don't know if I'd be able to do it on my own. And I've left him on his own for like.
I actually really enjoyed that. These guys kept me great company. Thank you, everybody.
Nice. So now let's go back to the premise of Matt.
Matt, but what business, what spin-off business would you create?
Oh, I don't know. I haven't really thought about it much. But I guess if I could have some music,
do we have
please.
Music? Yeah.
Maybe I can't. Maybe I've had my one shot of music. What if you had one day to change the world? What would you dream? I'd like to just take a few minutes here. Some people dream of a better life. Some people dream of a better world, or a bigger world, with up to 25% more things inside of it. I choose to dream even bigger still than that, with an idea that could not only make the world better and bigger, but also expand people's minds, opening up new possibilities about what you can dream, about dreaming of, today, tomorrow, and for the rest of the future. Innovation. It's a word we don't hear very often in the world of board games. Where are all the new ideas? Without new ideas, the juices in our brains lose the power that they have to feed the thirst of imagination. Today, I have a product for you that won't just change your life, it won't just improve your life, it will alter the very fabric of your perception of reality to a point at which new ideas will uncontrollably enter your brain. You'll invent a new kind of flying car. You'll cure a bad disease. And you'll invent a bad disease by accident. Don't worry, because this woman over here is gonna cure it, and immediately after you invent the bad disease by accident, you'll invent a brand new type of donut, and when you get tried at The Hague for war crimes, it will all kind of overall shake out. It's gonna be... So I'd like to ask all of you today to be open-minded, to give me 5 minutes of your time. You give me 5 minutes of your time, and I'll give you 5 minutes of a life that you never dreamed could be the life that you have. Together, we can dream the largest dreams and make the world a bigger place. Okay, so you can stop the inspirational music now. I'm going to go straight to the business press. Thanks, guys. Thanks. I'd like to introduce you to the Shut Up and Sit Down Smach Tower. It's a new paradigm in merchandise today. First of all, business growth. We're talking like projected business growth, current business growth, this year, next year.
No joke. I had a slide like this in that presentation I gave to like 11-year-olds. And my wife told me, you should take that out.
Yeah, 10, 11-year-olds aren't so interesting graphs. Interesting thing about Microsoft PowerPoint, I couldn't work out how to change any of the values or numbers. I could insert a graph into it, but then when I tried to change anything, it opened up Excel, and then I saw the numbers, and I was like, oh, wicked, but then the numbers disappeared for another picture of the graph within Excel. So this actually isn't representative of business growth, it's just a graph. But needless to say, this business, it's a growing. Now, obviously we've got some big questions to get through. Smach Tower sounds kind of a lot like the Dice Tower, right? Is that going to be a problem? Legally, no. 100% approved by Tom Vassell. You can see there's Tom Vassell himself saying this is fine. It's 100% approved by the Dice Tower. They've got no problem with this. They don't see any crossover in the audience. Yeah, it's going to be absolutely fine. So you don't need to worry about anything legal on that front. Obviously, we've got the big questions here. I know you guys have got a lot of questions about the Shut Up and Sit Down Smach Tower.
I have one big question.
Right, so the big questions. What's the marketing model? Now, the marketing model we're largely going to be using is just the traditional marketing model. We're going to advertise it, we're going to sell it in places, we're going to get people to talk about it. Second question, what's the gross profit per unit? There's nothing gross about profit. Profit is an important part of capitalism. Any money you make is good money. So there's not going to be any gross profit at all. It's going to be all absolutely solid. And how can I get in on this opportunity? Well, I'm really glad that you've all asked that, because today I would like to offer you collectively 0.5% of the business for $300,000. Might seem like a lot, but honestly, this kind of opportunity doesn't rock around very often. So I just have a really big think about it, maybe talk to the people around you and be like, how many thousand can you throw in? Because I think collectively, $300,000. I mean, in the board game community, I've seen a lot of these Kickstarters getting some really big numbers, so I think we can do this.
If everyone now turns to your left and right and asks how much money the person to your left and right has.
How much you're willing, like how many tens of Ks are you willing to put into this?
Between 2 bank accounts of Matt's Smach Tower.
Yeah, it's my Smach Tower business, which is, I haven't really discussed this with Quinns, but obviously like he's going to get a cut of this. I haven't worked out how much. Obviously not as much as 0.5%. But he will obviously get a cut because business partners and all that stuff. And this is my dream. For just $300,000, could it be yours?
I think I've realized.
And that's the end of my presentation on the Shut Up and Sit Down Smach Tower. Do you have any questions?
Would you like to describe the Smach Tower for the people at home?
Oh, well, the Smach Tower obviously is a dice tower made out of rubberized cooking spatulas. That's a prototype image. We haven't got the final design in yet, but effectively, yeah, it's a combination item, so it's very versatile. It's 18 spatulas combined. You can put the dice into the top.
Dude, you know someone's going to make this for you.
And the great thing is, the spatulas are attached together, but if you get a knife, you can cut one out if you need a spatula in a fix. Spatula is, of course, the most useful kitchen appliance available. It's rubberized, which means it's going to be like, it's not going to transmit heat, you're not going to burn your hands, and yeah.
Is this because, are you looking for alternate revenue streams? Because I've made you do a list feature this month. Because of the Christmas games thing. I'm not going to make you cover 15 board games in a video again. If I promise that.
No, I really like making that video. It's really fun. It's got loads of jokes in it. No, this is my dream.
It's your vision.
I mean, there's nobody doing this, all right? Like everyone's all like whispering to each other, going, I don't know, what's he doing? What's it like? Who else is out there making a dice tower out of kitchen spatulas? And this is supposed to be an innovative idea. There's one gentleman down here. There's only one other person in the room out there doing this. In 2018, I frankly think that's a bit disgusting. I think as an industry, we've got to really push the boat out. Quinns, why are they laughing at my idea?
I don't have any questions. I'm just imagining now the conversations of these people's friends going, oh, so you went to the Shut Up and Sit Down podcast. What was it like? And then just like the faraway gaze that falls upon their face.
I was doing this at 5 in the morning. It's true.
Is the file name, is the PowerPoint file called Jetlag is a Wonderful Thing .PowerPoint? No? Good. Okay, thank you very much, everybody. That's been our show. But if you would like to hang out, we still have 20 more minutes for a live Q&A before we dash off for lunch. So, if you came here for the podcast, that's great. It's over. You can escape. There'll be no more spatulas in PAX Unplugged. We can almost guarantee. Matt's shaking his head. He's confident. But if you'd like to hang out, we're going to be talking nonsense. We're going to be answering your questions. Then, yeah, you can do that. Matt, thank you very much for that lovely presentation.
Thanks. I mean... If you go to crowdcube.com/spatch, no, I can't. Smach Tower. SPATCHT. I think some of the people leaving aren't taking note of this, which is... I mean, they may be doing it on their phones. I'm sure it's fine.
Thank you very much. We've got a spotlight there. We've got a couple of spotlights. Look, the queue's there's big, but there's no queue there. Look, you guys could run over and get faster in the queue. Don't do that.
It's not worth it.
It's a fire hazard. Hello, thank you very much for coming to the show.
Hi. First, Quinns, thanks for emailing me about bread a few years ago.
Oh, that was you.
Hey. Yes, hello. Hold on, I wrote this down. So now that you're starting a new internship program, I was wondering what sorts of perspectives you were expecting to bring into your reviews next year. You often talk about how you like new perspectives in your board game reviews. So.
Yeah, I don't know. Like, I feel like any perspectives we're aware of, we try and include in our work. So, but I'm sure there's loads that we don't know about.
Well, it's if people. We're a very broad church. We review sort of like all kinds of games: party games, board games, war games, Euro games. But if someone is able to go deeper in any one of those genres, then we are. Or if they're able to if they're more interested in, because we have such a churn of review copies, especially now it's Matt and I working together for the time being. But if someone is able to or interested in playing games after the review, it's a feature that I've always wanted. Like someone who's able to really explore.
Yeah, no, that's a thing as well. But I think it's also the fact that we've worked together so much now that we've kind of osmosed a little bit and gained loads of the other person's skills. Yeah, you don't really know. I think if you end up working with the same people all the time and you forget that actually the process of working with new people means that you look at things differently and learn new things. And yeah, I think it's more the fact that we're just open to change.
I mean, it's not so much there are specific kinds of new ideas we're looking for. I think it's more like if someone sends in an application video and we see it, we're like, oh, this comedy or this style of criticism or the game they've chosen, we would not pick any of those things. That would immediately. And it's a difficult question because we can't answer because we're looking for stuff that surprises us.
Yes, that's the best way of putting it.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Bounce over to you, sir. Hello.
Hi, man, Quinns. Thanks so much for coming out again this year. So great to see you. I'm still a little bit traumatized, though, from the chocolate onion from last year.
Yeah, me too. Yeah.
One of the questions that I had for you actually kind of related to last year's question, because I was here last year. And y'all had mentioned the video that's still one of my favorite videos, where you guys basically run down all the tips you should have for introducing games to people.
Oh, yeah.
And one of the points that I really like from that video is, and what I really admire about both your channel and your podcast, is how you tell a story about the games when you introduce them to people. So I'm just curious about your perspective now compared to when you released that video, if there anything has changed in terms of your approach to telling stories about the games you're introducing to other people.
Your video, man. I don't know.
I don't know. I want to say it's definitely not the answer anyone in this was looking for. But at this point, I notice I'm starting to get sloppy. I teach so many games over and over again that I really have to kind of I could do with watching that video again myself, basically. But waking up and remembering that. That when I'm teaching a game to someone, it is a really exciting moment for them, especially in my playtest groups in Brighton now, because I'll have several a week. But then for each of those groups, it might be the most, like you said in Bargain Quest, the review, it might be the most exciting thing that person does that week. But for me, it's it's board game 9 of 10 that I'm looking at that week. So yeah, I think it's the more we get into board games, the more it's probably worth remembering that there is real magic to them to other people. So yeah, if anything, I might have lost perspective rather than gained a new one. But yeah, I think it's important to also look at yourself and realize when you're slipping. And yeah, I would like to be better at teaching games again, I guess. But now you said that question, maybe I will be. Maybe I'll remember that next time. So thank you.
Thanks.
Hi, guys.
Hello.
Hey. So first of all, just want to thank you. You, through your channel, have brought tons of joy and fun into my life by showing me games. I got into Netrunner because of you guys, and I want to know what you thought of it recently finishing. I mean, it's a living card game, finally done. And also, are you guys still playing that? Are you guys going to want to play out here?
I've only played it once, and it was in my kitchen about 5 years ago. Seemed real good, though. I mean, you actually did a whole panel about the death of Netrunner, which was at our convention Shucks in Canada, which was recorded and will be, probably on YouTube at some point.
Yeah, maybe.
Next few months. I don't know.
Yeah, it's I don't know. I stopped playing before it ended, but it's hard to have thoughts on that stuff. Mostly, I'm sort of looking to the future now. If you'd asked me a few months ago, it would have been a different question. But now it's Netrunner will probably come back because it was pretty successful in the 90s, and then it was pretty successful by FFG, and like collectible card games are money, especially now. Like everyone was expecting Netrunner to have a digital version, and that never materialized. So I think it will come back, and now I'm just kind of looking at the horizon and wondering what form it will take, because I think it's going to be very weird for me because so much of Netrunner is the world building and how it's really progressive and interesting, and expansions took you to Africa or India or the moon, but those things were like equally interesting. And I think when Netrunner comes back, if it's a different publisher, if it's any publisher other than Fantasy Flight, then, and if Fantasy Flight probably wouldn't publish it again, like, it's not going to have that same progressive world, probably. And that's going to really change my feelings on it. It's going to be weird. So yeah, it's going to be interesting in the future.
Okay, well, I've only played it with 2 other people, and I want to play it again. You owe me, man. You got me into it.
You can keep playing. The board game police will not take it away from you.
Howdy, as we say in America. I really like the podcasts. They are purely an audio medium, though, and I know that some volunteer who's probably really cool and handsome and charming has done a couple transcriptions of some of the more recent ones. And I was wondering if you guys had any plans for doing any further transcriptions for podcasts and for people who have audio processing issues and stuff like that.
That's a good question.
It's not. So it's not something that's currently on our to-do list. But I mean, if it's something that people are interested in, if it's a comment that keeps coming up, it might be something that we could do. It's really nice having the comment, but I mean, that's something that a commenter was driven to do. And so it's not part of our flow to make the podcast more accessible in that way. It's not something that we'd considered. But
yeah, I mean, transcription particularly, is an incredibly time-consuming process unless you're very good at it. I used to be not that good at it. I used to be a journalist, so I did a lot of transcription. So yeah, the idea of adding hours and hours of transcription to my life, I don't think I've got room for that.
I mean, it's a hell of a job. Even
it's a really amazing thing to be able to do if you can.
The person who actually transcribed the podcast you're talking about even left a comment being like, "Oh, that's you. Didn't you? Oh, sorry. Oh, right. Didn't you say though that
it was awful?"
Yeah, it's an awful job. Yeah. The only benefit is that you slow an audio file down to half speed so you can write to the same point, and it sounds like the people talking are stoned, which is hilarious. But aside from that, yeah, it's an awful job.
That's actually a good idea. I should try that.
Yeah, slow down to 50% speed, and it's very much like...
Yeah, it's very much a case of getting the right software for it, getting software that lets you, it's fiddly. Well, thank you for doing that, but yeah, no, it's...
thank you very much.
It's not something I can envision myself revisiting, unless I absolutely had to. Like, kind of a bomb's going to go off unless you transcribe this. I'll do it. All right? I'll stop a bomb. I'm a hero. But yeah.
All right, thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you very much. Sorry we can't be more useful on that one. Hello, sir.
Hello. So just a couple of recommendations and just some simple questions. First of all, thank you. Any game that I go to purchase, I always review what you guys do and what you say about it, and I think you're absolutely hilarious.
Thank you.
Thanks.
One recommendation, John's Roast Pork, 14 Snyder Ave, just in case,
Yeah.
Okay.
I've heard that's good. We've got that list of John's Roast Pork is on the list already.
Oh yeah. So really my questions are, what's the DCO and the break-even analysis on that Smach Tower?
The DCO is about 9.8 and the break-even is a yes.
Yes. Okay. All right. Well, thank you guys.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Let's have a chat, let's have a Skype about this over the next,
What's Skype? Is that something else Americans have that's
like
great?
PowerPoint in that it's bad.
Hi, guys.
Hello, sir.
I just want to know, what do you guys think about Cosmic Encounter? That's like my only favorite board game nowadays.
I thought he was joking.
Yeah, me too. We've talked a lot about Cosmic, more in the past of the site.
Yeah.
But I got it out.
I've always thought it's one of those games that I talk about too much on the podcast because I just love it. I love it.
It's certainly 4 or 5 years ago. No, it's great. I was just... Because Matt and I both collect the expansions, even though we don't get the chance to play it that much anymore. And I've just seen, so one expansion produced the teams variant, which is 2 people both need to get to 5 colonies, which elongates the game, but also has some nice back and forth between teams. But also, there's hidden teams, which I didn't realize is in the very latest expansion.
What?
Yeah, so it's you have to get to 5 foreign colonies, and someone else has to as well. But no one knows who's paired up with who. It's great. What a game.
That's mad. Yeah, no, I haven't played it for a while, but it's a solid favorite of mine. It's very silly. And I've got some friends of mine who I used to play it with tons, and they've been pulling at my elbow, being like, let's have a cosmic day, let's do a cosmic tournament.
That would
and
be
I'm like,
great.
yeah. So I've got a lot of love for it.
I mean,
a lot of love.
it's very difficult to get off the shelf because the first game is always a wash. Like, it takes a couple of games to even learn what the cards are, and then you start getting traction with it, and then it just takes off. So it's difficult for me to be like, hey, I'm going to play Cosmic Encounter with this new group, because really, there's no point playing it unless
You can have dud games as well. If you introduce someone and you told them it's great, and then you have a couple of dud games in a row, it's like they're done, which is fair. But when they fly, they're just electric.
I know. No, it's fabulous. We really like it.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello.
Hello again. I'm sure that you perhaps anticipated this, but did reviewing Between Two Castles make you think about combining board games that are not officially combined? And if so, what ideas did you have?
Wow. It's combining games is something that we just don't. It skews so close to game design that it makes me really uncomfortable because of all people, we're like,
Oh, here's an easy fun one, because they have similarities to a certain degree. Twilight Imperium, but Cosmic Encounter. So it's like, instead of having like 14 races, there are like hundreds. And you don't find out what they are until you're in a war with them after 6 hours. I mean, that would be hell, but...
that would be a hell of a thing. God, if Fantasy Flight's listening, like the first experience for, that's a genuinely great idea. Like if they do an expansion for TI4, which is like 6 new races, but they actually like are all designed in a secretive way, so you don't actually know what the power of the person next door you're
First
going
the
up against.
Smach Tower, now this. I'm going to be a millionaire by supper time.
What a great idea.
Thank you.
There's a way to do like the sealed compartments of legacy games in a way that isn't kind of disappointing. How about that? Thank you. That was... Oh,
Thank you.
thank you. I'm
With
really...
British, that could keep going on for a while.
If anyone's ever ended a phone call with a British person, it's, okay, bye, thanks, bye, bye, thanks,
bye, thanks,
bye,
thanks,
bye,
bye.
thanks.
Or banks, as I do sometimes.
It's hilarious.
Hello.
Hello.
This is another sort of game design-ish question. Do you have house rules that you really like to play for different games?
Yeah.
And what would those be, I guess?
I think a favourite for mine is, and just because I played it wrong for years. And,
Are you thinking of Skull?
Yeah, when I played Skull, you're supposed to wait and to go around in a circle to bid, and you're supposed to just like wait for your turn to bid higher. And I didn't know that, and we just played it like calling out numbers, and it's just so much better because it means that like people are constantly like, you don't tap out. You don't have people being like, come on, it's your turn, do you want to bid? And they're like, oh no, I don't want to bid. Like, it means that like every round you are laser focused, you know exactly what number you want to call, and you call it quickly, and if someone else shouts 4 first, then you're like, okay, I'm not going 5, and it's just so much better.
It lets players make mistakes, which is always hilarious in auction games of like, you go, 4,
Yeah.
and then it's like,
And then you're like,
no.
oh, I didn't want to do that. Yeah.
But also, you can pretend doing that in an attempt to bluff people out.
Yeah, no, I think it just amplifies the game. So that's a house rule. But there's definitely lots of things where I'm just like, oh, it's more fun like this, so we're not doing that. Like,
Yes. I mean, we were talking about this just this morning about
Yeah.
how, like, so because when we've been streaming some co-op stuff recently on Twitch, and occasionally we get rules wrong, but also getting rules wrong is any complicated co-op game. It's just absolutely part of it.
Yeah.
And it's not so much house rules, but like if you get dicked by a co-op game in a way that the designer would be like, that's bad, don't.
Yeah.
Just being able to house rule and walk around it.
it's
is
like you, especially with co-op games, it's like having a feel for like what you want the experience to feel like, and you feel like there are points where you're like, oh, we did this wrong. Should we go back? And you're like, yeah, no, we really should, because you realize it was too much of an advantage. But sometimes you're like, it's kind of an edge case, and you think, oh, it's like they think of like, I feel like we deserve that. Did we deserve that? And you go, yes. And you go, okay, well, we're doing it. And I think actually like that collective thing of going, well, we might have got that wrong, but who cares? Is really nice.
Yeah.
And I find it funny, especially with games of co-op, when people are like, you've got to get it all right. It's like, why? Like,
because I busted my ass.
I think it's interesting with Gloomhaven because we had a lot of people annoyed about that, and I think it's maybe because it's quite video gamey, and maybe a lot of people who play it are really big into video games, and it's this idea of like, but you sort of cheated, as if like if you finish Gloomhaven then you get a badge, and then other people might have that badge and they shouldn't have that badge because they got that rule wrong, and it would have made it a lot harder for them. It's like, it doesn't matter. Like, you're just playing with a box of things in your home, and if you're having fun and feeling challenged, like, then it's working.
Yeah.
So I don't know. But
I mean, it's working, in a emotional sense, but in a legal sense.
in a legal sense, it's not. No, it's
not.
falsified and
And
wrong.
Isaac Vega, Isaac Childress will come to your house and Hit
Oh, I
hit your
know.
box like a pinata.
I know, he's just like every Tuesday it comes
you can't
again.
play with it.
Isaac again. Oh, Isaac, I'm sorry. How are you listening in on my sessions? Mr. Rossetti.
Thank you very much.
What's up?
Hello.
So this is kind of like a follow-up to an email sent 2 weeks ago, and you actually responded on Thursday. So a buddy of mine were planning on going to PAX Unplugged, and I drove down from Boston, and while we're making plans, Boston. While we're making plans, I was like, oh, dude, you totally have to make these shirts for us to wear at PAX Unplugged. And I was like, you need to order these shirts so we can have them at PAX, since you live in Philly, so we can wear them at the con. And you got back to us on Thursday, and you apologized, and it was sincere, but it was totally okay because my friend had gone out and got crafting supplies to hand make these shirts without having to go through the online order. So I actually have the shirt
Oh, snap.
now.
What
And
Oh,
this is,
yes.
this is what it looks like.
It's from a container. I remember this now.
We thought it was a perfect thing to wear as like you are my board game friend, and I am your board game friend, and we are doing board game friend things together.
But specifically, that frame from the review is like when Matt really doesn't want to do the deal. It's me like shaking your hand vigorously. You're like, oh no.
Yes, you have to get these shirts now. Yes, I'm forcing you to get these shirts now.
That's awesome.
cool.
Man.
That's really cool,
That's
man.
so cool. You have one of those? How many of those?
So this is the prototype.
Ah.
It doesn't look right because there's 4 of you. It's not realistic. So I was wondering if you wanted this copy actually.
The one you're wearing now?
Yes, the one I'm wearing now.
I try to not make a habit of taking clothes that people are currently wearing. I find
okay.
it like it's legally fuzzy, morally fuzzy.
I have a shirt underneath. It's fine, but
that does change things a bit.
I'm totally okay with wearing this the rest
I think
of
you
the
should
con.
wear it. I think it looks cool with your jacket, man. I think I try to make a habit of not walking around wearing shirts that have my face on it very often.
Yeah.
Like I think it's a bit of a, I don't know how my wife feels about it, but
Yeah.
I think it's a dangerous tightrope to begin walking down.
It'd be like a band wearing their own band t-shirt. Although we wear our own merchandise t-shirts all the time.
We do, but I feel like having a website, a thing that just says "shut up and sit down," like it means if you're walking down the street, like people don't know what that means, so that's fine. And if somebody knows, they might be like, "Why are you wearing your website's t-shirt?" But it's like because I like my website. But if it's like you're walking down the street and it's like, "Where's that guy got a picture of his own face on his t-shirt?" Like, you don't need to know what's going on there. You know what's going on there.
Yeah.
I mean, you kind of know how I feel wearing, walking in Philly, just wearing a picture of your faces on it. It's kind of okay,
Yeah.
Because you don't have the same face as us. So.
But yeah, we're
If-
huge fans. Thank you so much.
Oh no, thank you so much for
Yeah,
making
it's
it. That's
awesome, man.
awesome. That's so cool. Thank you. That's fabulous.
Yeah, it's great.
Hello.
Hiya. So my friends have gotten me into Euro games and heavier games, especially a lot of the ones that you guys recommend. And while I have fun with them, I still feel pretty incompetent when I'm playing. So what is your advice for getting better at these heavier kinds of games?
Oh man, it's so much of it's just practice. Like it's kind of like sticking at it. It's not. Okay, well, I mean, there's 2 answers to this question. One of which is like how you sort of get better at sticking it out for long enough that you get practice. But do you do the thing that it seems to happen in every single Euro game where I've just realized that. No, sorry, that was unprofessional. I thought 2 people in the audience were people I recognized from England, and they weren't. And now I just feel like I'm having a stroke. Do you do the thing where you convert all resources into points in your head?
I try, but then the math gets confusing and
Yeah. People don't realize that, like, it's all well and good for us to recommend Euro games, but like they're so mathsy.
Yeah.
That,
Well,
like-
I mean, I'd say like my advice of what I do is just don't try and be better at them. Like I actually increasingly as I go on, I just play Euro games and I just like look at it and I do whatever seems fun. And I'm like, I want to do this. I'm going to go mad for doing this. And then I do my best to just do that. And I don't really know how well I'm doing. And actually, I think the more you play Euro games, the more you just naturally get better at like the feel of like what you should be doing and how you should be doing it. So I'm actually pretty decent at them now, but I don't win very often because I'm not really crunching the numbers. I'm not really and I make sloppy mistakes. But I always have fun with them. And I think the key thing is if you're playing games where like the theming and wrap of it aren't fun enough that you can't be like, I'm going to do this and it's going to be fun, then it's like, I don't like those games so much because I feel like there's loads of Euro games that let you do that. Like Altiplano, like I really like I'm really good at that weirdly, but I think it's just like I love making glass and making rugs and being like, oh, I've got so many llamas, and I don't know what I'm doing. It's just.
But it's one thing. I totally agree with everything you're saying. But I've been there where it's all well and good to say like, oh, but just don't care about winning and chill out. But until you actually win a game, it's a very different. Like you can get a real chip on your shoulder. So I hear that. And there's specifically a board game reviewer who I won't name, but every time I meet up with them when we happen to play a game, they always beat me. And like I never care about losing, but because I've lost every single game, it's not Matt, by the way. But because I've lost every single game with this person, it really started to get to me. And then like I started becoming a bad sport as well because like.
It's a good job I let you win all the time.
Right. Isn't it just? But yeah, so I don't know. We're not.
Yeah, it's tricky. I think like. Yeah, you may find that if you keep going with your gut with the numbers, your gut will just get better, because I found that's what mine has happened with. But if you really want to win, I'd really recommend cheating.
Yes. Yes.
That's a really the fastest route to winning, actually.
I mean, in all seriousness, like, if you look at, like, people do share tips for games online, and if you really do want to win and that would improve your experience and your friends know you're doing it, then why not, like, oh, we're playing Agricola, I'm going to look up a couple of, like, early build things.
Yeah, there's generally, like, if you look online, you'll find, like, some just advisable tactics. So if you really want to have a go, that would be interesting, actually, because if you did that, I feel like, people say, oh, it usually works out pretty well to try and do this, then rather than just going your gut and being like, I'm going to farm sprouts, like, trying to do the thing it suggests, and then seeing that A, if you do better, and B, if you enjoy it as much. Like, you might find that going for the win is really enjoyable. You might be like, I'm going to go back to Sprats. Or like, I don't know.
We found that with Lignum, where really planning in Lignum was actually unpleasant.
Yeah, I just don't think about it. Like, wood will happen.
We only have 4 minutes left, so we might have to, like, these people have been very kindly waiting, so we can try and do some quick fire stuff.
The quick fire round.
Hello, sir.
Hi. Thanks for being here, first of all.
Thank you.
So you guys are familiar with poker, right?
No.
No? Okay. Never mind.
Sorry, yes, of course we are.
Okay. Oh, yeah. So do you know strip poker?
Yes.
Okay, let's say you had
talking.
another venture called Shut Up and Strip Down. And you were reviewing...
This is not hypothetical. This is my...
Okay.
If you load up a Tor browser and then search for my name...
If you had to take any board game and turn it into a stripping game or a drinking game or something, what game do you think would translate the best?
Container. Container, but you literally lose your shirt. So like you can get,
and you might never get it back.
You can get $5 from the bank when you hit $0, but you have to take off an item of clothing.
Oh yeah, and every turn, like if somebody doesn't do anything, they have to give you an item of their clothing. Like so, you get a sock from someone. You're like, I was hoping for a shirt.
Do we have a serious answer to this?
I don't want to think about it too much.
April Fool's Day, maybe.
We're not going to do this on stream. I will say that right now.
Absolutely not. I don't know. Like, I guess Skull would work quite well.
I mean, the idea, because Skull is already like when you flip a skull, there's so much shame involved that like augmenting that and playing with that, it's kind of playful and everyone can enjoy that.
Yeah, that could work.
But yeah, strip games and drinking games are very different things. And actually, have you played strip poker?
I can't say that I have.
Okay, it makes no sense. This is a story that these are meant to be quick fires. Just hang out after the podcast. I'm going to explain to you why strip poker as a ludic experiment makes no sense, because why would you... the bidding makes no sense.
You win when you lose.
Yeah, you kind of win or you lose, which is why are you playing it with poker, which is a game where plots can get bigger or not, right? Like you can't. It's not like you bid items of clothing into the middle of the table. It's just if you lose a hand, then you take something off. So, like the whole.
Yeah. I'm really sorry.
Thank you very much.
Thanks for your question.
Thank you. Sorry.
Hello. Hey guys. So my question's gonna be real quick. First off, thank you so much for your Twitch streams being during my workday, which I guess really I'm thanking you for living where you do. Like,
don't thank us. Thank your employer who's here tonight.
I did bring a coworker actually. Really, I guess more I'm thanking like your ancestors for like seeing America and being like, not interested. I'll just stay home.
Fair.
But my question's for Quinns specifically. How good is Concordia?
I got a chip on my shoulder about this now because this is the short version. Yeah, it's great. obviously. But
yeah, no, obviously, because we
the
agree on that.
main criticism that Reddit board games now throws around of our site is like, yeah, shut up and sit down. Oh, they're the people who compare everything to Concordia. Because I went through like a 9-month period of mentioning how good Concordia was. Because guess what? If you haven't played Concordia, it's amazing.
Well, from then till right now, I'm still mentioning Concordia.
Thank you.
So,
but now I don't feel like I can, because every time I mention Concordia, then all of our critics are like, oh, they're doing it again. And
it's
I'm
okay.
like,
It feels, bro. On the other hand, you didn't like Caverna, so.
Who, me?
Yeah, that brings you down off the stage right
my
here.
tastes have changed a little bit, actually. I think if I were to do my Caverna review again, then I might have some very different feelings on it.
You should do your Caverna review.
Review again. Okay,
yeah.
I will.
Just professional advice from me, to you. So.
Sure. No, I don't. Yeah, it's our tastes have changed. And I think that is one of the games where I think if I played it now, I would.
Cool.
Yeah.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you very much.
Actual quickfire. Let's go.
Hello, James.
Hi, James.
How you doing? You look good. Anyway, point being, statement first. I took a class of Office, Microsoft Office, and they gave a huge book, like a telephone book size thing. And I was just like, this doesn't help me one bit. I barely passed the final, but it doesn't, it's like, why do they have to over-exaggerate a drop-down menu?
Yeah.
Just tell me, click this. Don't be like a whole paragraph or 2 pages of junk that I don't need.
I've seen those books. It's hell.
But now my question. Yes, I'm all over the place. I apologize. It's just me.
It's fine.
Now, I've played that Heaven and Ale game before. I played it at a game night at a comic book store, and my friends and I, we would name the sheds. We called one of them the Winchester. So I was wondering if you ever named any of the sheds when you were playing them, just for fun.
Can't say I did.
But if I built a shed in real life, I would absolutely name it. I would.
Oh, yeah.
I would put a little placard above. I would call it something like
the Captain.
Classic Shed. The Captain. That's good. Yeah.
All right. Well, thank you for your answer and have a safe travel.
Absolutely. Thank you very, very much. We've got a nice clock here that's, oh no, ooh, it's now counting up because we've gone over.
Uh-oh.
That's good tech, isn't it?
That is
23,
good.
24, 25. Who knows when we'll get kicked out? It's great.
I don't know either.
But we should leave.
I guess.
Because we should be professional for the
So sorry to people who
for...
queued up for questions and we didn't have time for. We are bad at quick fire rounds, as you have just observed.
Turns out we like talking. That's not ideal. But can you just give yourself a round of applause for coming and just being such a fabulous audience? Thank you so much.